ho! It is the Beating a Dead Horse Christmas Spectacular. And spoiler alert, the only thing that dies in this movie is the human spirit.
I don't know how to follow that up.
We watched the Star Wars Holiday Special this week. It's an hour and a half.
But it feels like 130 years.
Yes, this is an undeniable truth. It ends, which is nice. It exists, which is also nice because it means you can skim the YouTube highlights of it, which is generally, I would say, a good thing to do. It's an amusing thing to skim.
It's worth seeing the highlights, and nothing more, and nothing more. So I have a tale to tell about the first time I ever watched this movie, because God help me, this is my second time watching the Star Wars Holiday Special all the way through. I have one of the precious few in the world who has sat through it twice. A title that I'm not sure many other people can claim. So, Star Wars Holiday Special, I first saw it when I was in high school, and when I was first starting to, get into the whole bad movie thing. Like, I had just seen Troll 2, I had just seen The Room, and thought I was like a special boy for knowing about those things. And so, there was another thing going on around the time I watched the Star Wars Holiday Special, and it was the end of my first relationship. I had just been dumped by my first girlfriend, and my friend that week was like, "Hey, bud, like, it's all right, like, come hang out with the boys, like, we'll go to my house, like, hang out in the basement and eat popcorn and watch this bad movie, and we'll have a great time just like we did for The Room." And so I go, and I'm sitting there in the basement, and I'm watching this. I don't even know if I'd say I'm watching. I'm letting it happen to me. And then by the time it's over, I turn to my friend and say, without a hint of irony or anything, that it was the worst thing that happened to me all week.
Oh, man. High praise.
No, so, if you're not aware of, if you are maybe just starting on your own journey, to watching, bad movies, you're starting to get into it, like, maybe you saw The Disaster Artist and you wanted to watch The Room, and now you laughed at that and you watched other things. This is not
the next step.
No, it's not funny bad. Mostly. There are a couple things about it that are pretty funny, but overall it's just long, torturous, and just completely, I mean, like, it sounds funny. It sounds funny when you say that the first 20 minutes is like a soap opera done entirely in Wookiee and there are no subtitles. It sounds funny to say that.
It sounds funny when you hear that Cormac McCarthy
Cormac McCarthy.
Cormac McCarthy and B. Arthur's in it. What's his name?
Art Carney.
Art Carney.
Cormac McCarthy is the author of, like, Blood Meridian and, like, other highly literary works. He would certainly not be one to appear in a Star Wars Holiday Special. You know what? Who does appear in the Star Wars Holiday Special? All of the original cast, which is amazing. And the most amazing thing, the thing that makes the movie almost worth it, is that you get to the end, and Carrie Fisher is, like, singing some stupid-ass Life Day song, like, obviously coked out of her mind, and
that's not a dig at her, like, she's clearly...
She had the right idea.
Yeah,
like,
she's like, this is what you had to do. Like, I guarantee Han Solo or Harrison Ford was, like, blazed the entire time. Like, that's the only way they got these people to do this movie. This is miserable.
Well, I'm going to call into question whether Harrison Ford was just as drugged up, because the funniest part of the movie is that, like, you have these shots of Carrie Fisher singing, and she just looks like she's in bliss, like she's literally on another planet and like doesn't know where she is and clearly having a great time. And then the camera just for a second pans to Harrison Ford, and he's got like the grumpiest face. And like his like eyes are narrowed and he's squinting and he just looks defeated.
Well, he's a notorious pothead, and there's only so much pot can do that cocaine can do more of. So I have to imagine that he was pretty aware of what was going on.
In addition, I have another tale regarding my personal experience with the Star Wars Holiday Special. We tried to watch it again for a second time at my friend's high school graduation party, and we didn't make it like 15 minutes before everyone in the room was like begging him to stop.
I can't blame them. This movie is miserable. The only way I actually got through it is I was doing work at the same time. Like I was working on other things and just trying to do something else while having it in the background. Because I was also at the same time messaging my significant other and just keeping her updated and just like trying to maintain some sense of focus on this movie and like process it. And so I would start messaging her something and just continue to message her this, and she'd be like, "Stop it, I get it. The scene has to be over by now." And I'd be like, "No, B. Arthur has been whipping for 10 minutes. What else is going on?"
Stir, whip, 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 stir.
And that goes on. And I'm not kidding when I say it goes on for 10 minutes. Like, I was keeping track of this stuff. I'm like, well, let's see. I sent that first message at this, and it's been 8 minutes, and it just wrapped up. So super. Guess that goes 10 minutes of my life.
See, while you, kept your significant other updated via text messages, I refused to watch this by myself again. I knew that I knew there was no way I was going to do it, and so I made my significant other watch this with me, and I fully expected it to be the end of our relationship. I was prepared for her to like take one like look at me and like not get up and like walk away and never say another word to me again. What I was not prepared for is that this movie was so bad that it would kill her. You know, we're talking about death on beating a dead horse. Not too many people die in the Star Wars Holiday Special, but it did kill my girlfriend in real life. So I am on the run as I'm recording this. I'm in a ditch, like using a McDonald's Wi-Fi signal to give my update on the Holiday Special. So congratulations, the story writers, you and the filmmakers responsible for this. You are accomplices to murder. You were responsible for murder.
I very much appreciate that you are taking the time out of your life on the run to stop in and chat with us. In case at this point it isn't pretty painfully obvious, this is going to be a very free-form episode. Lots more just kind of chatting about what happened in the movie. I'm not going to put a spoiler warning in this one because if you care about spoilers from the Star Wars Holiday Special, God can only help you now. There's nothing I can do for you.
I will say that, like, if you do have, like, the morbid fascination, like, just watch a highlight reel on YouTube. Just watch, like, someone, pulling the best parts. It's not worth sitting through the whole thing. You'll be bored.
No,
you'll be bored and you'll want to die.
You can get through the entire movie in 10 minutes on a highlight reel, and those will be the best 10 minutes of your year. It'll be hilarious and bizarre, and you will be left confused and with like just a complete lack of understanding. And your next thought will be, well, maybe I'll go watch the whole thing and maybe it'll make sense. It won't. It will just be 130% longer, and you'll be just angry afterwards. Angry, bored, probably with a headache because all you've heard is Wookiee noises for a while, and just generally upset and a little uncomfortable.
I mean, not to mention that the whole experience, speaking of having a headache, like the whole experience is a little off kilter just because, this ran like once on whatever station it ran in back in the, late 70s, early 80s, and then was never shown again. So the only way you can watch it is like bootleg rips that like people posted on YouTube after recording from their VCR. So it's like discolored and like low quality and like the whole thing. It gives the whole thing like the fuzziness and like the horrible sounds. It really is like a fever dream.
See, I actually managed to find one that was quote unquote high quality. Like I didn't get any sort of fuzziness. Everything looked as crisp as I think it could be. And it still looked awful. The lighting behind the whole thing was miserable. I'm 90% sure they didn't get the actual on-site location for most of the shooting that they were doing. Like at one point, we have Han Solo in quote-unquote the Millennium Falcon, and you get literally a sliver of light that goes across his face, and everything else in the area is in darkness. My theory is that they didn't have access to the actual Millennium Falcon, which is absurd because George Lucas was on this film, but I can't come up with any other reason as to why it's just so dark in this shot. There's no good reason for it. And like, if it was Mark Hamill at the time, I could have had the argument of, oh, well, he had literally just had his accident. And you can tell that he did. In his shot, you can see he's heavily made up, trying to hide that he's a little scarred, very poorly hidden, and like they shoot the entire scene from the opposite side of his face, but it's very brightly lit, and that's weird. Why would they light that if they're trying to hide something and then not light the other thing when they should have the actual set? So I don't know what happened with this movie. There are way more questions than there will ever be answers to this one.
Well, because it's not like, you want to compare it to something like The Room or even like Troll 2, which, had some sort of motivation. Like Troll 2 was made by like a schlock director who just pumped these things out and didn't really care. The Room, Tommy Wiseau. So I mean, there's a whole fucking movie out right now about like the making of The Room and like why this quirky like crazy person felt compelled to make this movie. But I'm sitting here just like struggling to think about like why this movie would be made, because the way it plays out, it almost plays out like a late 1800s, early 1900s like Nickelodeon, where like it just plays these clips of like people dancing and like, I mean, there's just a whole clip of Lumpy, like the stupid Wookiee kid, setting up his transmitter. It's like a fictional how-to video. And then there's like all sorts of dancing and singing, and like there's nothing really Star Wars about it aside from the occasional clip of like a familiar cast member. But like, at least with the B. Arthur like cantina scene, like that at least is like a Star Wars thing. It's not a good thing, but it's a Star Wars thing. But like for the most part, it's just like people like acrobats, and like a rock band plays for a little bit, and yeah, and it's just like a variety show, but without anything entertaining about it. It feels like the kind of thing that would have been impressive. Like it's like how some of the first films were like of a guy sneezing, and that was impressive just because it was a moving picture. But it was like, this is Star Wars. We've already had a big epic like action adventure. But that sort of leads me to think like it almost feels like this is them trying to like make the Star Wars universe feel more lived in by like showing these
merchandising. Like, oh wow.
No. I mean, exactly though. Like having like showing, except I don't know like why you would want to buy like Lumpy's transmitter or whatever. I don't know why.
Dude, I want the Itchy figure. He comes with masturbating action.
Ah, yes, of course. Itchy, Chewbacca's dad. has an entire scene dedicated to himself. It's it was actually really funny watching this.
Well, let me hold you really quick for 1 second.
Yeah, sure.
Because here's the thing, is we're going on like this, like everyone who's listening to this knows exactly what we're talking about. Let me kind of set the stage as to what exactly is going on in this movie. Because the basic premise of it is that the Wookiees have a holiday called Life Day. And Chewbacca is hitching a ride with Han Solo, as he does, to return home to his planet, which they called something other than Kashyyyk, because that got retconned out of existence.
Weirdly consistent with what Kashyyyk would look like, though.
Yeah, it was. Like, it was very close to Kashyyyk, but not called Kashyyyk. And so the plot of the movie is focused on Chewbacca's family. Mala, his wife. Itchy, his father or father-in-law, does not matter. And Lumpy, his son. And their plights as they hope that their father, husband, son, son-in-law makes it home in time for Life Day, because the Empire is infested in the planet and they put up a blockade and they're searching their houses and stuff like that. And like, that is the plot of this movie. Interspersed throughout is the weirdness that we will be talking about. The cantina scene just happens on a TV screen somewhere. The time when Itchy takes some moments to masturbate just happens in the middle of it for no reason. He's in some VR helmet. The transmitter building happens with Lumpy as he does his own thing. Like, the through line is just that they're waiting for Chewbacca to get home. Everything else that we talk about that doesn't sound immediately related to that is some weird pseudo sketch comedy, Saturday Night Live, pan away type of bullshit that just happens. Shut up. It just happens.
See, you say that these sketches are interspersed, but I would say the plot is the thing that's interspersed.
Okay, yeah, you are right in that regard.
Well, because we get like 20 minutes of Itchy literally, I mean, we say like a Wookiee masturbating, and that's, if you've seen it, you know that's exactly what it is. It's like he sees this girl like covered in crystals, and it was super funny like watching this with someone who had never seen it. Because my girlfriend made that joke. She was like, "Oh wow, wouldn't it be funny if like he's sitting here in the VR helmet and like the Wookiee just started masturbating, and then the lady in the crystals is like, I am here for your pleasure, like you can control me," and it shows Itchy going like, "Urgh," like in the helmet.
I know you like me because you designed me.
and her jaw just dropped. It made it was so much more tolerable watching this with someone who had never seen it.
So that's the other thing, is most of what we say might sound like a joke. It's not a joke.
I just don't know what to say about this, except another thing that like, because the thing about some of these observations, like, it's nothing new. Like, obviously, like the Wookiee masturbating is one of the most like infamous things. You want to talk about death? So the Star Wars Holiday Special has killed the concept of sexuality. Like, after seeing this movie, like, nobody will ever want to have sex again.
Oh my god, it's irreparably damaged everything. Oh, it's ruined it all. It's fucking destroyed it. It's done.
But, in addition to all that, what I think is super weird about this is how, like, it occurred to me that for, like, a holiday special, like, the plot of this is basically that, like, it's Christmas and the SS has come to raid your home. Like, they have the scene of, like, the Empire, like, ruffling through all their stuff and, like, searching the house and, like, search for signs of the rebellion. And it ends with a stormtrooper toppling to his death from the top of, like, a treehouse. And in an extremely hilarious sequence where Han Solo sneaks up on the stormtrooper, but the stormtrooper sees him and he has his blaster leveled at him. And he doesn't just shoot Han, so they just, like, shuffle back and forth like they're two people who have like run into each other on the street and they're not sure like who should go around who.
Sorry, excuse me. Pardon me. Excuse me. Sorry. You go ahead. No, go ahead. No, you're good. Go ahead. No, it's good.
But that's exactly what it looks like. And then the stormtrooper trips over a log, and of course there's a Wilhelm scream, and he falls to his death.
And it's not like questionably if he falls to his death, like, oh, it's only like a story and a half. He probably just broke his leg and slunk away. No, they're like, he died.
Well, because then Art Carney comes in and like lies to the Empire about how he like ran off and deserted, and they have to go like hide the body. It's like strangely morbid for a fucking holiday special.
It's Life Day. We killed the man.
It's Life Day. Like you want to, you're making the Star Wars holiday special. You're not making it high art. You're not making it. It's got to be something stupid and corny that you can run. First of all, why does it need to be an hour and a half? Why does it need to be feature length?
That's without commercials, by the way. This would be interspersed with commercials. This would be like 2.5 hours, probably with commercials. That's a night. Like, you just set aside your night to watch this.
You could have just done like a 30-minute thing with the original cast where like, yeah, you focus on Chewbacca because he's like fuzzy and like that'll be cute if you must make a Star Wars holiday special. And then you have a little plot about like, maybe him like trying to, like as far as like a holiday special plot, like that's fine. Like he's trying to get home to his family for Life Day, whatever. And then they do some tricks, do some escape. There's the spirit of giving or whatever, and then it's over after 30 minutes. But no, we just have to have all that same garbage just padded out with like a literally like a cooking video, a cooking show in the Star Wars universe. Like you can say that it was meant to push merch, which it obviously was, but like, what merch are you pushing by including like domestic like cooking television? And
No. You're missing the joke, okay? Because if you watch the scene closely, and like you really need to look for this, it's not really obvious, but if you watch closely, you notice that Mala, Chewbacca's wife, doesn't follow the directions exactly and is a little bit more wild with the ingredients. Do you get it? It's a joke.
Really? Are you fucking with me? Because I'm not sure if you're fucking with me.
No, that actually happens. Like, if you watch, like, it's clearly intended to be some sort of bizarre joke of her, like, throwing things in all willy-nilly and not stirring in time and stuff. And I'm not kidding. It was clearly played for some sort of joke that it's relatively obvious. You don't need to watch that closely, but you do kind of have to look beyond the obvious. It's insane. It's the stupidest thing I've ever seen.
See, look at I feel like in this scene, like I cannot get over like Harvey Korman in blackface, like just hypnotically saying stir, whip, stir. Like I'm too focused on that. Like that supersedes everything else. Wow. Okay. So that was the point to that scene. I feel like my world has been changed a little bit.
Okay, so hang on. Let me try and dissect some of this stuff then really quick. Let's play a game and see if we can't figure out why these things are interspersed. Okay.
Okay. So I'm here.
So that was the first interjection, right?
We had the earlier one with Art Carney and the shop, but I guess that technically counts as the plot since he came back.
Yeah, that comes back, and I wouldn't call that necessarily as interjectionary.
Yeah, I don't know if Grandpa masturbating came before or after this.
Grandpa masturbating, I think, happened simultaneously or slightly after. No, it happened slightly after because Art Carney was there.
Oh, that's right. Because he. Wow.
So that has nothing to do with anything, right?
I mean, that's the excuse for the song, which that's what's even weirder about the girl like saying about how like she's created for his desires. All she does is sing. Yeah. Like she just sings and is not even that like it's not even that sexual. Like she's just wearing this like crystal dress and just singing. So I don't know.
Okay, it's not Blade Runner 2049 where like it's like the hologram, it's supposed to be like some sort of life partner thing. No, she just exists to sing to him, and he clearly gets off on it. We did miss
the gymnast.
I was gonna say the weird Cirque du Soleil thing, which it's representative of the circus of life and trying to make it back for the holidays.
It shows how it's really a cutting, biting commentary on Star Wars as an institution, with its placement at the beginning, next to the absurdity of the Wookiee domestic life. It's showing how inane Star Wars is as a product of capitalism. It's basically like, bread and circuses.
Right. It was very ahead of its time, I will admit, because we hadn't really seen the Star Wars circus, so to speak, come to full fruition yet with yearly or bi-yearly releases that we're seeing nowadays. So it was almost a little prophetic in a way, and I really have to respect this scene and give it a lot of props for what it did. Other than that, we have the cantina scene, which is B. Arthur singing "Goodbye, Friend," "Good Night, Friend," but not "Goodbye," repeatedly, and just those two lines for about 5 minutes after watching Art Carney drink with his head and toilet noises.
And by that point in the movie, you are ready for the sweet embrace of death. So like, I don't know about you, but for me, like, the scene, both times I watched, just like falls over me, where I'm just like, realistically, like, this is one of the more sensible cutaways, and that, like, I understand, like, why it's happening, because I don't understand, like, why in universe, like, Lumpy or whoever is watching this, but
no, it's not Lumpy, it's the Stormtroopers.
The Stormtroopers, right. But like, it's showing that, like, the Empire is, like, cracking down and, like, setting the curfew. So at least, like, this has some sort of logic in the fiction.
Right. And, like, I remember it being, like, message from the Empire, look at the depravity of Mos Eisley, and it shows the cantina. And I get, like, it ties it back to Star Wars, which is a nice change of pace.
It's the kind of corny thing, like, the song is bad, but, like, it's the sort of thing I would expect from, like, a Star Wars holiday special, Like, most of this is just, like, garbage. There's the rock band that I don't even remember when that happens.
The Jefferson Starship, actually. They're an actual rock band.
Oh, I mean, I'm sure they were an actual rock band. I couldn't tell who they were. But
that was also used as a distraction. Like, that was Art Carney setting up the distraction so that he could talk to Mala in the kitchen? Like, it's never really established why he sets up this distraction for a single stormtrooper. But it's clearly some sort of distraction for this single stormtrooper. And not just an excuse to put the fact that Jefferson Starship will be showing up in the Star Wars holiday special on the tagline for the promotion. It was a carefully constructed plot point. Once again, it all relates back to capitalism. And so including this band, this popular band at the time, is clearly a dig on how popular music influences culture and distracts from the things that are going on around us. It was clearly, literally a distraction for the gentleman in the movie, but a metaphorical distraction for the rest of us, missing the bigger picture of conspiracy against the United States government.
While we're sitting here watching our pop music and our rock heroes, the government is rifling through our houses and
MK Ultra. No, it's MK Ultra. That's why Grandpa's watching that in VR. They're experimenting with psychokinetic drugs, and they're trying to develop psychics to fight the war, and they're implying that it's a good thing. That's why Grandpa's in VR. So when you get abducted and taken to the secret holding cells in the CIA, you will accept the VR singing lady so you can become the new singing guy and take over the Soviet Union. That is the point of this whole movie. That's the representation of the stormtroopers. Normally, they're clear allegories for Nazis, but in this case, no, my friend, in this case, they're the Soviet Union, because this is in the center of the Cold War, even though it ended 20 years ago, but that's just the Cold War that we know about. The actual Cold War has been going on for hundreds of years, and you don't fully understand what is happening right now.
Wow. So you're saying this movie was a weapon designed by the CIA to oh.
It's the death of America.
It's the death of America. Wow. Well, you know what? That goes along with another weird thing about the movie, that it's starting to make sense now, because there's another sequence. There's the animated sequence where Boba Fett is introduced for the first time in the Star Wars canon.
The guy that everyone loves.
This is his first official appearance. But Lumpy is clearly watching it as a cartoon. And that's weird, because you would think that, the Empire would control the media in the Star Wars universe, right? So, like, why would they be airing cartoons about the rebels? That would be like if the United States aired a cartoon about, like, ISIS.
Or the Soviet Union.
So, clearly, it's just another way the movie is, subliminally, like, playing with us. Like, it's toying with us.
I'm telling you, this entire movie is a front for MK Ultra. Like, that's the only thing I could think of. That's the only reason that this movie could have been made. The only reason this movie would have been made. And I'm telling, George Lucas knows more than he's telling us at this point. Like, I bet you, we can tie the prequels back into this in a very, very clear way. Specifically, here's my theory, all right? They are setting us up to doubt ourselves. Because in the Star Wars Holiday Special, the Wookiee planet is like Khadgar or something along those lines. But later on, it's retconned to be Kashyyyk. So they're going for that Mandela effect, where they're trying to tell us that it's Berenstain Bears, but it's Berenstain Bears. And I know it, and you know it, but you know who doesn't know it? The U.S. government, because they're telling us it's not true. And so what they are doing here is priming our brains to understand that what we believe is not true. This is 1984 come to life. What we have here, my friends, is the beginnings of doublethink. So listen, let me tie this back for you here, okay?
All right. Like, bring it home for me.
Yes, we are. Let me finally finish. We need to finish what we were starting on this first, though. Okay. Because the big thing
like
that we
Kylo Ren, because Star Wars.
Exactly that. You are 100% right in this case. So we were discussing the cutaways and how they relate to the story. And
yes.
Here is the final piece, the big cutaway at the end, the one that we all cite, is Art Carney being a robot humanoid thing, explaining how to assemble a transponder. Okay, we're all on this page together. Art Carney is explaining to the young son of Chewbacca how to assemble a transponder in a Star Wars Christmas special. A scene that goes on for approximately 5 minutes. And this is very crucial to the story, because you see, and here's something that it took me a little bit to notice how this tied in and how it related. The transponder is crushed a couple scenes later because the young boy, Lumpy, if you will, is using it to speak to the stormtroopers to tell them to leave and vacate the premises so that his father, Chewbacca, if you remember correctly, like his father is Chewbacca, and we're all on that page together, Chewbacca can arrive in the household to a welcoming and grateful family. This transponder is actually used within the movie, and it's discovered by the stormtrooper who Han Solo kills because he found out the truth, so they had to get rid of him. And that's not a joke. That actually is what happens with the transponder. That's why it's in the movie.
You saying this actually makes me realize that, like, the Star Wars Holiday Special, when you actually, like, lay it down on the table, is strangely, like, comprehensively plotted. Like, when you ignore the fact that the sequences go on for 10 minutes at a time, like, when you look at the sequence of events, like, Lumpy, like, creates the transponder to create the distraction, and, like, Art Carney puts on the rock band to distract the stormtroopers so they can do this. It's strangely plotted, but it doesn't feel like it.
No, it's coherent. Like, there's actually a through line, and everything kind of lines up with the previous scene and works and builds upon it and everything. The problem is that they spend 10 minutes on each cutaway. It's it's proto-Family Guy in a way, in that they're just spending too much time on a single gag, and it cuts away to nonsense and pretends like it's funny because it's nonsense. And it's Art Carney, and he's a robot that speeds up and slows down sometimes. It makes funny noises, and it's a joke. Do you get it? It's a joke.
I thought that sequence was extremely disturbing, by the way.
Oh my god, no, there was some serious... Okay, so I'm going to break into this here because they said the name of the species, and they're like amphibidroids or something like that. I don't remember exactly. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So just out of curiosity, I did some Googling around, and there's a Wikipedia article on it.
Of course there is.
Explains that these droids, they're not droids, that's the thing. They are actual humanoid creatures that function in a way that they slowly speed up, slow down, and repeat because depending on their energy levels and glitches within their own conscious system, which means that there is a species in the Star Wars universe that is just essentially literally sentient robots that aren't robots who are constantly dealing with their own glitches and malfunctions. Like, and this isn't like, you know, humans might have to deal with something similar to that if they have like brain trauma or something along those lines. And like, that's a seriously sympathetic condition, and I apologize if I've offended anyone in my incredulousness of this situation, but this is an entire species that works under this idea. This is not an isolated guy. This is everyone.
God, you know, that's the thing about Star Wars is that, like, I mean, these things, just out of curiosity, like, does this species show up in, like, the extended universe, like the original extended universe?
No, it is referenced, like, I read the whole Wikipedia. I think I read like 2 or 3 articles on them, actually, because I'm a psychopath. And it ended up like they appear in a novelization of something else as just like no, they appear in one of like the Cartoon Network or Disney Channel cartoons.
That's
so like it's not like somebody wrote them in a book. Like somebody had to animate these guys, and I think it's only like an episode or 2, but they appear again. And if it's part of the Disney canon, it's part of canon.
I was wondering if the Star Wars Holiday Special was still canon, because I'm pretty sure it was canon before. I don't know.
See, it's hard to say because they do change the name of the Wookiee planet, but there are elements of it that remain canon. There is some serious layers to this movie. This movie has far-flung implications that we were not prepared for. Like, and joking aside, there are some serious implications to this movie. They had some weird things happening with it.
And yet, despite all that, despite all the weirdness, sitting down and watching it for an hour and a half still feels like having your teeth pulled.
It's like so bad.
It manages to be so... It's strange that it manages to be so bizarre and so boring.
Well, each time a scene changes, you get about a minute of enjoyment out of it because you immediately go, why am I watching a cooking show? Why am I watching Art Carney spaz out as a not android human monster?
As part of a how-to like manual, nonetheless, for a fictional thing that will never exist.
And for that first minute, it's weird and funny, and then it goes on for anywhere from 2 to 8 minutes longer, and by then you're just done and want to hear Wookiees screeching at each other again.
Oh, by the way, did you find it extremely creepy at the end when they dressed up in their Life Day robes and like all the Wookiees like walked into like
the light?
The abyss, like the light. Like, did you find that as creepy as I did?
I'm pretty sure that's representative of the mass extinction of Wookiees. I think this is just saying that Chewbacca is the last one alive. Because like they literally walk towards the light.
Oh no! Chewbacca's the last one, and this whole movie is just him like wishing for another holiday with his family who is long dead.
Oh no, it's a fever dream.
It literally is a fever dream. That's why it feels like it.
Oh no, that makes sense.
Oh god!
Or at least it makes more sense than anything else in this movie.
I mean, we never see Lumpy or Itchy, or I can never remember his wife's name again. Mala?
Yep, Mala.
All right, we never see any of them again. So, so this is obviously just like a dream, like brought on by like the pressures of fighting in a war.
And like they're clearly dead though. Like right, like that's what Life Day is. Like it was a celebration of life that once was, because they all clearly walked into the light in inky blackness. They're dead.
Chewbacca included, and that just shows that like that's really where he wishes to be. And we see that throughout the movie through like his struggles, like trying to get away from the Empire. Like that's his daily life, and he's just trying to get back to his family, but his family is dead. So really the only way he can be at peace with himself is if he joins them by walking into the light.
Right, of course. And I would say that this probably continues throughout the Star Wars universe. We see him engaging in continually reckless behavior, flying into the Death Star, working to fight against a force that he, under any normal circumstances has no business winning against, and just constantly endangering his own life. I think this is a man crying for help. Or Wookiee crying for help. I don't want to gender Chewbacca.
I'm pretty sure Chewbacca's male. I think he uses he pronouns. Oh God. Yeah. So, well, I mean, what a holiday special, Well,
I think before we do wrap up though, because I think we are starting to end on this. We do need to end this at some point. And I can only yell about MK Ultra for so long. We should just kind of, I know you lightly touched on it, but we should talk about the death of the Stormtrooper just briefly and just offer our condolences.
Yeah, man, he was just doing his job.
It's a poor man. He did rip the head off of Lumpy's bantha, but
I gotta say, the death of the stuffed bantha is the most effective thing in this movie, because I am a sad sack and get really sad when stuffed animals are destroyed or when children lose their stuffed animals. So even though like the bantha head just obviously like came unscrewed.
Yeah, you can see the thread on it and everything that. It's clearly a screw.
It's clearly a screw. Even so, the fact that like Lumpy gets real sad and like puts it on the bed and like puts his blanket over there, that made me a little bit sad.
I blame Toy Story. I think this is like just a generational thing, because I'm very similar, and if it wasn't this movie, it would have hit me in the exact same way, and I entirely blame Toy Story.
Oh God, you're probably right. Because Toy Story was the first movie I had ever seen. Like, it was the first feature film that I had ever watched. Like, my mom brought it to me in the theater when I was, like, an infant. Like, 2 years old or 3 years old or something. So, like, the whole time, like, the toy is, like, being alive. It's been imprinted on me. So, like, God, maybe it is a generational thing.
I can't imagine any other reason why literally everyone would be so attached to stuffed animals and toys and whatnot, especially like in our generation. Right? It doesn't matter. Like, that's not what you're talking about, because we're actually getting into something that's serious and could be considered an actual worthwhile topic. And we're here to discuss the Star Wars Holiday Special.
Yes, we are. Do right about that, my friends.
So the one thing I will say about the scene of the Bantha's unscrewing is it's essentially like, you know how people in movies kill dogs just to make you feel bad about the dog? Because like we all have that attachment to dogs. They're a living creature and they can be killed in movies without having like the repercussion of, oh, you killed my wife, my husband, whatever. But there's still that immediate, like, no, the dog died. That's what this bantha is in this movie. The bantha toy is a equivalent to a dog, just without any sort of plot significance.
It's an even greater manipulation than, like, killing a dog. Because, like, yes, like, killing a dog in a movie is, like, one of the easiest ways to, like, get people to feel sad and cry. But at least with a dog, like, in theory, like, you can make a dog in a movie a character. And, like, in one way or another, like, there are a lot of movies that are just about dogs. And, of course, like, a lot of them end with the dog dying. But, like, part of why it's sad in those movies is that, like, the dog is a character, like, Where the Redford Grows and, like, those kind of movies, like, basically any dog movie.
No.
Like,
listen, it's weirder than that. Like, it gets weirder than that. What's the other reason you kill a dog?
So you kill a dog because it'll make people sad because they're sweet and innocent, and you want to make the person who killed the dog look really evil.
Yes! And who kills a dog in this movie?
The Stormtrooper?
Yes! Who has been in Star Wars before. We all know that Stormtroopers are evil, and he's been demonstrably evil throughout this movie. Like, this is the last thing he does before he dies. We know he's evil. Why did this happen?
Well, that just sort of is what I was gonna finish off with, is that this, like, destroying a stuffed animal is like the ultimate manipulation, like maybe even more so than killing a dog, just because like, you know, again, a dog could be a character in its own right, but a stuffed animal, like, only exists unless it is like a Toy Story situation, like, relative to, like, someone else, like, make them sad, and it's cute and it represents innocence. Like, destroying it is, like, an easy way to do that and show that someone is, like, mean or cruel, like, breaking a toy or, like, ripping it apart. So yeah, it's just the dog death trope taken to its logical conclusion.
Quote unquote logical.
well, taken to a conclusion.
That's more accurate. Everything in this movie goes to a conclusion. It ends, folks. It ends with the mass death of everything Chewbacca has ever loved.
It ends with them marching into the next world like monks.
Then, like the Wookiee monks, we too shall march on to our next world. I have been Sean McKinda. You can find me on Twitter at Sean_McKinda. I also stream on Twitch at helpless_Skippy.
And I'm Jackson Keller. You can find me over on Twitter at Jackson J. Keller, and also in the ditch behind McDonald's, trying to figure out how to convince the police it was the Star Wars holiday special and not me that killed my girlfriend.
Please visit our Patreon. We're trying to support Jackson's release from prison and aid in his escape.
There's a GoFundMe, you know, anywhere you can toss a couple bucks, you know. I really appreciate getting a good lawyer here.
Yeah,
we got to take on Disney and Lucasfilm's, you know, legal team. I'm sure we'll want to shut this up.
There's nothing like we're gonna lose this, but you know we can at least fight it and bring it to the public eye. So I think that's what we're really looking for. If you would like to see how that battle is going, please follow the podcast on Twitter at BADH_cast. We will keep you updated to the minute with the current standings on how Jackson's legal battle is going. And hopefully by next week, when we talk about Star Wars The Last Jedi, we'll have a better understanding of where Jackson is now and how we can help him.
Thank you. And have a Merry Christmas.
Also, thank you to Lords of the Highway for the use of our theme song. It's Suicide Alternate Take off the album High Octane Low Expectations. Here's Mala. Life Day, a poem by Mala. A season of giving, of hope and good faith, but no hope in this home. My father, masturbating in the living room. My son, almost getting me shot. My husband's friend, making unwanted and unappreciated advances. My husband. Lost in space and fighting metaphorical Nazis. Myself. Alone. With B. Arthur. Thank you.
Don't you go into the ground. Don't you go